us all predestinated. From every death to every child brought forth through copulation. From the spouse that you choose to your current occupation, you either receive mercy or Yahawah's indignation. I can recollect on times that I could have been dead, caught lacking, no strap. I had
God. So let's continue to show this theme. That the Most High is a God that condones exclusivity and separation. Right. Let's go to the book of Deuteronomy 7, and this is the same author, which is, we understand it to be Moses. Going into a deep conversation, that we'll get really technical and say, oh, it's Ezra, but we understand the Torah, for right now, Moses wrote it, right? So Moses wrote this in Leviticus. Let's see what Moses wrote in Deuteronomy 7. So if you cannot, can you read Deuteronomy chapter 7, verses 1 through 3?
All right, this is Deuteronomy chapter 7, starting at verse 1. When the Lord your God brings you into the land that you are entering to take possession of it, and clears away many nations before you, the Hittites, the Girgashites, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites, 7 nations more numerous and mightier than you. And when the Lord your God gives them over to you, and you defeat them, then you must devote them to complete destruction. You shall make no covenant with them, and show no mercy to them. You shall not intermarry with them, giving your daughters to their sons, or taking their daughters for your sons.
So right there we see that the Most High, he said when he gave us the land that we would inherit, that we were to devote these peoples to destruction. It says that cleanly. And we were to not make a covenant with them nor show mercy to them. And he even said that we couldn't intermarry with them. So right here, this is a clean or a clear example or a clear showing of exclusion and separation. And this is the Most High commanding this, right? So again, another clean example that the Most High, he condones exclusivity. Hey, you're only allowed to, or you're not allowed to marry these people. So we have to exclude, certain folks from even, being married to us, right? And making families and things like that. And even if you read in the book of Tobit, it was of our school of thought anyway to marry within our tribes, which were the 12 tribes of Israel. And I still would preach that, marry within the 12 tribes of Israel, right? But right here we see explicitly that the Most High, he tells you and he excludes certain nations that that you can't marry, right? Or he tells you that you can't marry certain nations. Now let's continue on, because that's just one example within this passage, but it's going to go a little bit deeper. You can read verse 4.
For they would turn away your sons from following me to serve other gods. Then the anger of Yahawah will be kindled against you, and he will destroy you quickly.
And example, a lot of example we see in the Bible is with Solomon, because he married some of these people, and he went off into idolatry. But again, the Most High, we see at times he gives his reasoning, and right here the reasoning is that these peoples would turn us away to other gods or deities, and this would cause the Most High to destroy us, right? And the Most High, he doesn't want to destroy his people, but obviously we read in a few verses up that we were to devote these people to destruction. So again, exclusivity shown, right? He's okay with others getting destroyed and others being devoted to being destroyed. For us, he doesn't want that to happen. So he's giving us the command and telling us the why, right? So that's a beautiful point right there. I wasn't even gonna go into that, but I kind of just picked it up while I was reading. All right, but let's go on to verse 5 and 6.
And just to make a point,
Come on.
it says 7 nations. There are some
Right.
nations of people that aren't mentioned there, but the most, I think, the best advice that you could give someone is, even if you don't see those nations there, they're not one of the 7 nations.
Yep.
It's still not to intermingle or marry with these people. Marry your own people. And you see by the context, as you continue to read, it's saying, hey, don't intermarry with them, because they're going to turn your sons or your daughters away from following me to serve other gods. So, just a good point also in that chapter.
And to add to that, I believe when you read in 1 Kings 11, when it's speaking about Solomon, as the brother was speaking to, Edom is not mentioned here, but Edom was one of those nations that, or one of those wives was of Edom that turned Solomon's heart away. So just it doesn't stop within these particular nations, as far as them being able to turn you away from your God, right? Because the other nations, they don't serve the God of our fathers, so like, of course it's not going to be their instinct to turn you toward your God if that's not their God, right? So just wanted to add that, and Thawada for bringing that point out.
And all praises.
God, but you can read 5 to 6.
Verse 5, starting at verse 5 in Deuteronomy chapter 7. But thus shall you deal with them. You shall break down their altars and dash in pieces their pillars and chop down their asherim and burn their carved images with fire. For you are a people holy to the Lord your God. The Lord your God has chosen you to be a people for his treasured possession out of all the peoples who are on the face of the earth.
So it said, this is how you deal with them, right? Dealing with verse 5. It says you break down their altars, dash their pillars, and chop their asherim. And that's going into the Asherah poles, which the brother Herbie's going into a lesson on that recently, which he thoroughly breaks it down. And hopefully at the end of the lesson, maybe I could put it in the chat or something like that. But for the time being, just in case you're not familiar, that's dealing with, the Asherah poles are dealing with a particular, type of service done towards a deity named Asherah, right? But the Most High, again, he told us to destroy these things. That's the charge he gives in verse 5. Then in verse 6, it said that the children of Israel, are a holy people to the Most High, and that the Most High chose us out of all the other peoples on the earth. So the Most High's choice of a special people is another example of exclusivity, because the Most High, he excluded Israel from the other nations to be the people, or to be a holy people to himself, right? And we're going to go into a source a little bit later that really goes into that a little bit more. But again, I believe this is example number 2, just showing, or really number 3, just showing how the Most High, condones exclusivity. So again, if somebody tries to come to you and tell you, hey, exclusivity is not of God, because we know that jargon, when people say, this is not a God, that's my God would, like they love to,
you serve a racist God.
It kind of like God, like they let her throw these phrases out there, but again, like it's like they don't even read what their God, quote unquote, said, right? It's like they serve a different God than the God of the Bible a lot of the times. Like they kind of have like this idea, of the Most High, and they base it a little bit on a few passages, like John 3:16 and all of these things, but it's not the God of the Bible that they have in their head and are serving, right? So, again, as we read through, right here in the Torah, it's obvious that the Most High, he condones exclusivity, he condones separation, all of these things, right? But you have any points before we move on?
I would say right now, spiritually and figuratively, what you're doing with this lesson is tearing down, breaking down their altars and their astral poles, because we know, right now physically they're not doing this in Babylon. They're not building up these altars and all these carved images. Sometimes you may find some people still doing that, but for the most part, our duty is to chop them down and break them down and dash them into pieces by tearing down this false doctrine that they out here putting people under a spell with. That's exactly what they're doing. They're putting our people under a spell with these false doctrines. And this is how we chop down those images and break these altars.
Excellent point. And you just made me think of a passage, 2 Corinthians 10. It's an excellent point. Let's read this. 2 Corinthians 10. It might read a little bit differently in the ESV. But can you read, matter of fact, you read verse 2 Corinthians 10, verse 3 through 4. Matter of fact, all 5.
Through 5, gone. For though we walk in the flesh, we are not waging war according to the flesh. For the weapons of our warfare are not of the flesh, but have divine power to destroy strongholds. We destroy arguments and every lofty opinion raised against the knowledge of God, and take every thought captive to obey Hamashiach, or Christ.
Come on. And just to speak to the prior point that the brother made, week in and week out, that's what we push and strive to do. Especially, I know the brother heard he does a marvelous work through the Spirit and power of the Most High, in doing that, because our people, we have these I guess you could say figurative or spiritual idols within our head that we follow after and worship, and we try to stick on the name of the Most High to it, right? We say this is God, and it's really is not that much different than how our people did in antiquity. We would say, yeah, well, this is YAHAWAH, and they would stick it on some idol that ain't have nothing to do with the God of our forefathers, and is attached to all this idolatrous work, right? So that's the work that we're tasked with today, and this is how we go about doing it. We destroy those arguments, and we against all of those lofty opinions, all of those because a lot of times people they like to argue with emotion, and they love to pull out all the stops, so to speak. But through the Spirit and power of the Most High, what we do is we take those things, we confound them and bring them into to captivity, to obey the Most High and His Son, and we either going to yield to this Bible, or you just going to deny it. But you're going to see that what you're saying is not in there. This is clear. So all praise to the Most High for that point out.
All praise.
But we're gonna move on to